Yes, awesome. All right, so we're all ready. So what you will need in front of you, something to paint on, a pencil, some paint brushes, some colored paints, and a black texter. The texter is last because it will just do the outlines. So the first thing we're going to do is start drawing our chameleon. Now my chameleon is sitting on a log. So what I'm going to do to start off with, very lightly with my pencil, I'm going to draw a log that starts in the bottom left corner and goes up to about the middle of the other side. So you're going to start in the bottom and just do a light line and make it go up to about there. You can use watercolor for sure, that works very well. So you can't see my line. Bottom line coming up into the other side. So it goes all the way from there, all the way down to the edge. Then to make it a log, you put another one next to it and follow it up along. Now your log could start fat at the bottom and get skinny at the top. It could go big, small, big. It's a log. Has anyone seen a tree in real life that's completely the same size? No, they come a little bit bigger, then they get smaller as they get to the tip. So what you can do is you can make a bit of a thick log and bring it into a bit smaller at the top so that it sits kind of like a real looking tree log. See how it starts off quite thick down the bottom, and then as it comes up, it gets a bit skinnier up into the top. And you don't need to worry about making it super straight because logs and trees and sticks, they're natural. So nature likes to make things asymmetrical, which is not the same. Nothing is the same size. Then what we're going to do, just to start off with very lightly, is we're going to put his head. His head is kind of like a bit of a triangle shape. So I want you to do a big pointy triangle just to sort of start off our shape. It's going to look a little funny for a little bit. So this is our triangle. So that's the head shape. So a big triangle just above the skinny end of the log. Don't make it too dark because we are going to go over it and change it a little bit. This is just to set up the way that it started. So a big triangle. See how I already made a mistake? I just ignored that little one and I made it a little longer. Go away, kitty cat. Inside of the big triangle, what I want you to do is a big eyeball. So when I'm making a circle, trying to make it very symmetrical, is I hold my pencil a little bit further back and I hold it up and I go around a bunch of times until I make a circle the size that I want. See how I'm still going over that same circle to really make it the shape that I would like. We've got a big eye, we've got our triangle head. We're going to change it a little bit in a minute. It's just to map out where it's going. Then we need to add a body shape. Now a chameleon's body comes down nice and long and then his tail is going to swirl around. So we're just going to start off by thinking about where the body is going to go. From the eye, I want you to do a really light line coming all the way down, all the way to the back. We'll curve it a little bit. Coming down into a little spiral just on top of there. So that's just to map out where we're going to put our body. So you start it here very lightly, all the way down, coming around into a little spiral. That's just to show us where we're going to put that body. So that tail is correct, but this is the center of our body. So from the eye, bring it down all the way into a spiral. Don't worry about how it looks just yet. We're going to fix up little bits and change little areas a little bit. So with the shape of our body, we want it to follow along next to this center line, but a little bit further out to its head. So the tip of the head is here. We're going to make the body come really far out and bring it down until it hits the trunk. I'll show you. So it's going to be a body shape like this. So we start at the top of the head and we follow next to that line, coming down until it gets to the tree trunk, and we hit the tree trunk where the tail connects. So that it has that big body shape. Following it up, coming down to the tree trunk. As you can see, I've got a bunch of lines. That's all right. We're going to rub out the yucky ones that we don't like anyway. So keep it coming and down. When it comes to the bottom half of our body, this is where it gets a little tricky. So what we're going to do to start off with is we're going to draw the feet first so that we know where they're going to connect to the body. So the first foot is going to sit about here underneath the head, and it's kind of like grabbing the pole, the tree trunk like this. So your hand needs to be shaped like this sort of shape. So we're going to draw a little underneath the trunk, we're going to draw a little top bit, and then it comes down and spirals up like this sort of shape. So we're just going to draw a little lump, and it comes almost to the bottom, so it's kind of grabbing on the side of that tree trunk. It's a funny little shape for a foot. And we're going to bring it up to an elbow and then bring it in. So it comes to like a little angle and then it comes in. We'll smooth it out a little bit so that point's not so pointy, but that's the idea. It's got a little elbow because they've got funny legs that can bend so much. On the back half of that foot, you're going to follow that line again, see where the elbow is, drag it up and make it into a leg shape as well. So just following that same path, that's your back leg. See how he's coming together, slowly getting there? Awesome. If you want, while you're waiting, what you can do, see how now this line here, we're going to not need that line anymore because you can't see a tree trunk through a foot. You can erase that line and get rid of it so that we don't have to get confused. Rub out that line that's inside that foot. So then it looks like he's holding the tree. You can rub out that little foot line. So he doesn't have a tree coming through his foot anymore. Then we're going to move on to the back foot. So the back foot, we're going to put just a little bit further down. It's not going to be as big. It's going to be a little bit smaller. So we're going to bring it just to the top with that little curve. Bring it down a little bit so that it has the same shape, but it's just not as big. Keeping that wobbly, it's kind of like the end of a bone shape, isn't it? That little wobbly shape. So the tail should be very close to where we did our spiral, and then the back foot is just in front of it. We bring that back foot up, the back of that back foot, and connect it to next to the tail. So bring it up, bring it up, connect it around, and continue our spiral next to that other spiral that we drew. So this back leg comes up and runs next to that spiral. And then we end up connecting and making that spiral shape for his tail. Like so. Comes into a little swirly. So we go from the back foot, bring it up. Your spiral you've already drawn is here, and you're just going to run along next to it. The same way we did when we drew the second bit of our trunk. We're going to do that for the spiral. Then you can connect that drawing you already did of that spiral to your other one. So starting with a point for the tail, following it back up against that line, all the way following that line until it touches the back of your chameleon. And we've connected it all these little bottom bits. If you've accidentally drawn some lines on the inside that you need to get rid of, just rub those out and just fix up your lines a little bit. But don't forget, we are going to paint over it, and then we are going to put texture over it as well. So you've got the tail, you've got the back foot, the front leg, we're going to connect this front of this back leg and then make the tummy from the head to the back leg. That's our next step. So the back leg connects up into the back of here. We're going to bring it up following that leg and then take it out so it looks like his leg has a little lip here. So you're doing a line up and then a lip. You've got his little back of his knee. So we follow that up and then give it a little lip. See how he's coming together? And again, we can't see the foot, we can't see through a chameleon's foot, can we? It's got color. So we're going to have to rub out the line where we see the log, and in the tail as well, where we see the log, we'll have to rub out this line, and anywhere where it goes through the tail. So with your eraser, just getting that little line and rubbing that out so that you can't see through a chameleon, because chameleon's not made out of glass. Silly chameleon. Just so that you don't see through the chameleon anymore. So we rubbed out anywhere where the tail is over that line and the foot. Got a silly cat running around. Sometimes they get the zoomies, and my cat has the zoomies right now. Okay, next step. What I want us to do is we're going to draw the tummy and connect it along here. Don't lose your pencil like Miss Addison. Remember where it goes. So your tummy comes under about where the tail would be. Just a little line under there to connect to that tummy. Then following where that line would be, we're going to connect it. We're going to go under this triangle. So our head, this is the head. We're going to do the jaw. We're going to go under the triangle, bring it down and connect it up like a little lip. And that will make his little jaw. We'll add in a little mouth. So starting on that line that you have for the bottom of your triangle, not all the way over, start just underneath the eyeball. You're going to have a little mouth coming up and connecting into that nose. You can see he's slowly turning into a little bit of a worried chameleon, but still a happy chameleon. Just underneath the eye, taking it up and curving into that nose, as they don't have a very pointy nose like a triangle. It's quite soft. I know there's a lot of drawing to get done. I'm sorry. We can do it. The final step of drawing before we start painting, we're going to just connect his head all together. So at the top where the triangle is, we're going to soften out that head. What I want you to do is make it a bit round at the top. So see how I made it a bit soft, a bit round? You can change the shape of the head how you like, but I'm going to make it a little bit wobbly. So he's got a bit of a wobble to his head. So we soften the top and give him a bit of a wobble, not too far down. And then again, you're going to follow that line down to the nose. Now, if you want, you can give your chameleon some character. You could give him a big forehead. You could give him a little forehead. You could change it up a bit. I'm going to give him a little bit bigger of a forehead so that he has some room to have a nose. So I've changed up his head shape just a little bit, not too much. Just so he has a bit of character hit to his head. See how he has that little, comes down, a little bit of a dip and then into his nose. The final step before we start coloring in, I need you, just on his face where we have all these extra lines and that line that we followed down his tummy, we're just going to rub out those pencil marks, just where we've drawn all those little extra bits, just so that we can see exactly what we're going to color. Don't worry if you accidentally rub out his eyeball, if you accidentally rub out the back of him, because we're going to go over in paint, so it's all right. We're going to cover these lines anyway. We just want to make them a little bit lighter so that we don't have to worry about them as much. And make sure I can see my eyeball because I won't know what's going on. We should have the base of our chameleon. You've got your eyeball, you've got your head. If you wanted a wobbly head, you've got a bit of a wobbly head. If you want to give him a smile, you could give him a smile as well. We've got our cute little feet attached onto this log and those sorts of stuff. So how's everyone going with their chameleon? Do we need a little bit more time to get that drawn up, or are we a-okay? Oh, that looks so good. Oh my gosh, Addie, awesome. Abigail, that looks awesome. Banu, that looks great. Good job. That swirly tail is so cool. All right, I think we are up to painting them. What we are going to start with, I want you to get a brown color, and we're going to paint the log brown first. So grab a brown, get some brown on your painting palette or a plastic plate or whatever you use to put your paint onto, maybe even a piece of paper that you're not using. And you're going to get a paintbrush and color in, paint the whole log. Now we want to draw over this, so we want to make our paint not too thick, a little bit wet so that it dries. What I like to do when I'm painting is I paint the center first and then paint the edges afterwards, because I like to go along and be as careful as I can along those lines so that I don't paint the feet because they're not brown. We're just painting the log. So see how I'm going very carefully along that line and very carefully to paint, but not paint that foot and not paint that tail. This is the tricky part's going to come in. We don't paint the tail. If you do, don't stress. It's okay. We will paint over it. But it's a little bit easier if you have the minimal amount of brown, because green over brown is a bit difficult sometimes. So you're going along and painting that whole log, making sure you cover the whole area. Try and add a little bit of water to your paint so that it dries a little quicker. You don't want pure acrylic paint because that will take a little bit too long. What you can do if you want to, you can always come back and add more paint on top of it later. But just while we're doing this today, add a little bit of water while you're painting so that it dries just that little bit quicker. Going in, getting all of those areas. This is probably the most tricky bit because we've got to make sure that we don't. Can you go away? My cat wants to paint with us as well. Oh, he made me paint my page. Oh well. You don't want to make it too thick. Getting in all of that little detail area. If your log is a little bit browner in other areas, a little bit less brown, don't worry, because nature as well is not even. Not all things are this exact same color. What was that? What can we do? Oh, you can always use watercolor for sure. Watercolor would probably be better because it dries a little bit quicker as well. And watercolor would mean that you're already watering your paint down, whereas acrylic, we're just using watered down acrylic. But painting it up, making sure you get every little area. What I like to do when I need to paint a certain area is I turn the whole sheet of paper so that I can make sure that I'm painting it nice and straight. So you can always turn your whole page so that you get all of those areas. keeping it nice and working on your axis. Then I'm painting up towards myself on this end. I turn it upside down so I can cover that whole area a bit easier. Rather than trying to paint like with your arm or contorted, easier to paint towards yourself. Painting away from yourself seems to be a little bit harder. So dragging the paintbrush towards yourself means you have more control and you're able to cover that whole area a little more. Now my silly cat decided to jump on my table. So I have a little bit of mark here. So what I'm going to do is just paint an extra little twig going down this way. If you ever make a little mistake, you can just pretend like it's another log and add some extra bits to your canvas. So the good thing about paint is we can just pretty much add whatever we like. We can just make it look like it was an intentional thing. We did it on purpose. Look at that. I fixed the issue. So you've coloured your whole area, making sure that's nice, fully covered. Chameleon is now standing on a log. You need to wash your brush. Make sure you're getting all of those areas. Once you've finished painting your log, we're going to do a little bit of colour mixing. I want you to make this lime sort of colour. So we're going to, if you have yellow and you have blue, get your yellow and your blue. And you're going to get quite a bit of yellow. So look how much yellow I grab. And then with your paintbrush, you're going to get a little bit of blue. So only like this much. We can't even see it so little. A little bit of blue and mix it into that yellow colour to make that lime green, that really fluoro green colour that chameleons are. So the teeniest, tiniest bit of blue and a lot of yellow and mix it together to make a lime green colour. So the teeniest, tiniest bit of blue. And it should come out this limey green looking colour. You've got a lot of yellow, a little bit of blue, and that's going to be our chameleon's colour. Have we all painted our log? Are we ready for the chameleon colour? Yep. Yep.
Almost.
Almost? All right. You keep going. You get that one done. Oh, I just cleaned this paint. I accidentally did. Make sure you've mixed your chameleon colour, or you know what, if you want to, go crazy. Have whatever colour for your chameleon. If you want a pink chameleon, make a pink chameleon. You are more than welcome to. Do not feel like you have to follow the exact same colours that I do, because you can do whatever colours you like. If you've got your chameleon colour, what I want you to do is really give it a decent amount of water. So I'll show you with mine. So I've got my colour here. I'm tipping it in the water, adding the water to it, and then mixing it. It becomes quite see-through. Makes it a lot easier to dry and a lot easier to work with. Glides a little quicker on the paper. So we've got our watery chameleon colour mix. We're not painting this bottom bit of the chameleon because the bottom of the chameleon is orange and yellow, but the top of the chameleon and the tummy is this greeny limey colour. So I want you to start at the back of its head, and we're going to colour that whole area, this limey green colour, covering the whole top half of the chameleon. Make sure you use a little bit of a bigger brush because you've got a lot of space to cover at the moment. Using a tiny brush, this is going to take you a long time. So we really go all the way along our chameleon. covering that whole area, covering that whole chameleon. And again, you will need to go back into your chameleon color and keep adding more paint and coloring all the way down. If you need to make more color, that's all good. That happens a lot of the time. We use the color, then we have to make some more. With the tail, we're only painting the top half of the tail. So as you come around, you can turn your page towards yourself and you're only painting half of the tail, not the whole tail. So just following that top of that back all the way along. Not coloring the whole tail, but just half of it as you come through. All the way. It gets a bit tricky when it gets to the point because it gets very pointy. But if you have your paint nice and thin, that's all right, because if we just paint over it, it will work quite fine. So we're painting all of this. We're going to paint about the bottom of the tummy, about here, all the way down, covering the whole chameleon. If your paint is nice and thin, don't worry about going over these lines because you'll see through them. As you can see on mine, you can still see through the paint. But if you have thick paint, try not to paint over those lines. So if you can't see color through your paint, don't paint over those lines. Painting the whole of your chameleon. It's a lot of area to cover. Our chameleon definitely eats a lot of bugs. Do chameleons eat bugs? I guess our chameleon eats a lot. Getting the whole bottom half of that, top half of our chameleon nice and covered in that colour. Same thing with our head. When you come to the chameleon head, I want you to paint this top half of the head, but not this bottom bit of it, and don't paint the eyeball. So we're going to avoid the eyeball. If you're painting, you can follow the nose along the top of the mouth, connect it up with the rest of your body, but do not paint that bottom bit of that mouth. And again, following up the top of the nose, up the head, up to the top of the chameleon, but not painting the mouth or the tummy, the bottom bit, the under tummy. Once you finish painting, make sure you wash your brush and then clean it off thoroughly. Cleaning, cleaning, cleaning. You painted the top of the head, not the jaw, all the way down, leaving this feet and the bottom of his tummy and tail not coloured. How are we going with our chameleon painting? Everyone's working so hard. You guys are working good. Doing so well. I can see the concentration in everyone's face. Are they working hard, mister? I know my cat, he's very needy today. He's decided he wants to see all your artworks. Do they look good? How are we going with our chameleons? Do we need a little longer on the body?
Yeah.
Yeah, all good, can do. Just make sure we're getting every little bit of area, colouring that whole area in, making that whole section fully covered. If you're finished and you're waiting for the next color, I would say grab an orange and a yellow, and we'll have those two colors ready for your next bit. Or if you don't have orange and yellow, grab two other colors that are slightly warmer. So orange and yellow are warm. Maybe you want to pick, if you have a pink chameleon, maybe you want to pick purple and red would be interesting. You could do a blue and yellow, all sorts of colors. All right, once you've got your chameleon painted up, grab your orange color. Make sure it's a little bit wet. Like I said before, we add the color, add the water, thin it out, make it a little see-through. You're going to do orange right along the bottom of his tummy, the bottom of his foot, and the bottom of his tail. I'm going to flip it upside down so I can paint it a little easier. So you're going to, with the orange, the bottom of his tummy, of his jaw, sorry. Stop at his leg, make sure you don't hit that. Try and be as neat as possible, getting the bottom of his mouth. His little feet. It's a little bit difficult sometimes. We've got to paint quite slowly in this area so that we don't get it everywhere. We want to keep it nice and neat. Just up to about this much. See how I only come up to about here? And again, same thing for the other foot. Painting that whole bottom foot. Bring it up. Other side as well. Don't worry if you've left it a little jagged, because we're going to put another color here and we're going to blend those colors together. And again, I want you to paint underneath the tummy, following along his back, down the tail, all the way to that point. So don't forget, when you need to, turn your painting so that you can have easier access to painting that color. All the way along, painting it down the tail, nice and carefully. It's okay if it touches the green, because we're going to paint yellow on top of it so that they blend together a little nicer. Sometimes it's hard with this spiral to find the right angle to turn on so that we can paint it, isn't it? So painting that little tail spiral all the way around, all the way. Once you've done that, what you need to do is quickly wash your brush and grab your yellow so that you can blend it in. So if you might need to do this in sections. So you grab your yellow, paint it back on top of this section here, and we're going to blend it into our orange. So we'll start by painting that yellow on and dragging that orange. So you can see that my orange is moving just a little bit, and I'm painting into the yellow to really make it into that orangey yellow kind of color. See how they're blending together? And they're becoming like a little sunrise. Really blending those two colors together. And you can bring it up into the face, into the green, so that we're really adding that whole area nice and blended. Bring it up to about halfway. As you bring it up higher, your paintbrush and your color on your paint should blend off. So you start down here, painting, blending it together, bringing it up left and right, and it slowly disappears. Sometimes because we've left an orange in a certain area a little long, it might not blend as well. So what you can do is you can either paint over it with yellow again, or you can add a little bit of orange again, paint it on top, quickly wash your brush, add a bit of yellow, and then blend it in straight away so that it has that nice blended color. So it's that soft orange to yellow. So you can see that it's soft, it's gone from orange, blending in and coming up. We're going to do that on all of the areas that we have orange. To get your yellow, paint it on top of that orange color. If your orange is already dried, that's all right. You're going to just lightly paint on top of that, blending out that color, making that orange a bit more so that we can blend it up. A bit more yellow, blending those orange and yellow together. And again, blending it up. I'm drying off my brush, and then I'm just moving the paint up. So you dry your brush, and you just lightly left to right move your paint up. And that will move it little bit by little bit up the side into the chameleon. Same with the other bit of the tummy. We blend it out a little bit, dry it off, add our yellow, blending that tummy up. See how it moves the color a little bit? Just going left to right, just little lefts and rights, all the way up. It's making it look like a little bit of a sunset. Into the green above it, little left to rights as we take it up into the tummy. See how I'm holding my paintbrush? I'm not holding it down here really hard so that it's too focused. I take it back quite far and just little left to rights so that it blends it out a little nicer. Makes it look really nice. You can take it all the way up to here. Chameleons have colors all over themselves, don't they? They really like to have color everywhere. Keep doing that all the way along for your chameleon, adding your yellow. I'm just going to map it out quickly so that I can blend it a little nicely when I come back to it. Adding that orange to blend it together. Everywhere you see it. Blending it out. Blending, blending, blending. If you think that the orange is a bit strong where it's attached to, you can get your green and go back over it again so that the orange and the green blend together a bit better. If you want to, you don't have to because that's all right, but only if you want to. Really blending those colors together. All right, we might move on to the next step. Oh, that looks amazing, James. That's so good. Those colors look awesome. With your orange, this time, we're going to do the top, so the back little spiny bit of the chameleon. So I want you to grab your orange nice and nice on your brush. At the top of his head, he has these little spikes, like these little spikes here. They go like doop, 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 doop. We're going to follow a line here, paint it down, and then come back and give him some spikes. So I want you to find where you can hold it nicely. You're going to paint along the top, all the way down, almost to the tree branch, not all the way. And then you're going to come back and give him little spikes. So you're just doing little ups and downs and making little spikes like this. Little up and down, up, down, just to make little spikes on his neck. Just spiking up his little head. So he's starting to look like a little chameleon with his cuteness. Following your little spikes on his neck, we're going to do some little spikes following down the side here. So the chameleons have these lines that come down like this and like this. So we're going to start by doing little lines going down his body. Then with the same orange, you're going to kind of do backwards trees. So thicker at the top and it comes down at the bottom. So you're going left, right, and back and forth like little spikes off the side. End up looking like little. If you need to use a smaller brush for this, you can, and then you can make your little backs and forths a little bit neater. These little spikes, looking like a cute little chameleon. These don't need to be perfect because he has some little silly spikes coming down. Quite good thing. Maybe you want to make some super long ones and some shorter ones. So maybe the ones in his tummy, you make a little bit longer. So that you start them off a little bigger and then they get smaller as they come down. You could have some big ones, you could have some small ones. Adding these little left, right, left, right, left, right as you get down. As you get closer to the bottom, they get smaller. So they're not as left and right, they're just little. Do a couple of those on his tail as well. That looks so good. Yes. Banu, that looks awesome. Add some on his tail so we can make a little spikes on his tail. Some here. All the way around to really give him that chameleon look. Don't forget they're wider at the top and then they're smaller at the bottom. With his tail, it's a bit easier to just make them little spots. Ah, we're having fun. These are looking so good. What we're going to do now, I wonder how dry it is. Just before it gets too wet, grab your black texture. We're going to outline his head, his feet, and the trunk so that it's not too wet. So with your paintbrush, with your pen, your texture, draw over his little mouth. Really make his little mouth stand out. Go over his head. So that we can really make these stand out. That his little head, isn't it cute? Follow under his mouth, along his tummy. Make sure not to draw through his leg. See how it gives it that little bit more and it stands out? We follow down his leg onto his foot. Just following those lines that you drew before, just with the black texture to really make it stand out. Like so. Following it up to that back leg, that back of that front leg. And again, doing his bottom of his tummy. The front of his back leg. All the way down. Now, if your paint is too wet, you can leave this to last. If your paint is pretty dry like mine, we can do this now. Then you're going to follow all the way down the front of his tail, but because we just painted this orange bit, I'm going to get you to leave that to last. So we'll do this front under bit of the tail all the way to the point. Take it up the other way. Avoid the orange bit if that's really wet. So mine's really wet, so I'm going to leave that to the end and I'll come back to that. But I want you to just have the idea of what we're going to be outlining. So this bit up here is too wet for me to touch, so I'm going to do that later when it's dry. But if yours is nice and dry, you can do that. What it means is you'll just be tracing. I'll do it anyway just to show you. You'll just be tracing the little lumps that you've drawn with the black so that it really makes them stand out. See those little lumps? Following the little lumps all the way up. So following the lump, all the way along his back. Now don't forget, if yours is too wet, add this bit later. We should have his little outline and he's looking super cute. How are you going, guys? How are they looking? Are we liking our chameleons? Ah, that looks awesome. Oh, it's so good. Yes. Does anyone notice anything that's missing on our chameleon? What have we forgotten? I wouldn't. What's missing on our chameleon? His eyeball. Yes, exactly. What I would like you to do is we're going to pick a color for his eyeball. You can pick any color you like. I'm going to pick a really like bluey sky color. But you pick any color you like and we're going to make that his eyeball color. So whatever color you pick for his eye, pick a darker color for his pupil because our pupils are black. We can pick any color. So for his eyeball, pick a color, paint the whole thing, whatever color you would like. Make sure you're nice and careful when painting the eye because it is quite round. You want it to look lovely. Get that whole eyeball. Once you do the edge of the eyeball, you can do the inside of the eyeball pretty easy. See how he's got a big eye? He's watching everything, isn't he? My chameleon is seeing all that is happening. So you've picked your color for your eyeball, painted your awesome, big, colorful eyeball. And then pick a darker color for the eyeball. What color would you like your eyeball? I'm going to do a dark blue. If you put your eyeball in a different spot, they can look kind of funny. So if you put it right in the center, they look like they're looking to the side and it looks quite fun. You could put one at the front. I'm going to put mine in the center and make him look like he's a little bit confused. So you'll see what I mean when I painted them. If you put an eyeball in the center of an eye, they look a little confused. I like the look of confused chameleon. I feel like that's what chameleons look like a lot of the time. They look stunned, like something scared them. Doesn't he look a little scared? He's like, oh, something's happened. And then you have your cute little chameleon friend. Isn't he awesome? He's kind of scared. Maybe he's happy. Maybe he's having a great time. Oh, yours is looking down, Banu. He's like trying to get whatever bugs are below him. He's going to snatch them up for dinner. That looks so good. How'd you go, Addie? Your colors are so cool. That looks awesome. Yours has got the eye in the center like mine. He looks a little stunned as well. Doesn't it make it fun when they have the little eyeballs in the center? Chameleons are so cool. They have their eyes and they can see, I think it's 360 degrees. They can see all the way up, all the way down. They can move their eyes in different directions. So you could have one eye looking to the left and one eye looking on the ground and one eye looking behind. They're so cool. They're the coolest creatures ever. Ellie, that looks amazing. Oh my gosh, that's so good. See, you've really inspired the 360 view. He's looking all the way behind him there. That looks awesome. How'd you go, Jaden? Did you have a good time? How's your chameleon? Is it looking good? Did you want to hold it up at all? You don't have to. If you don't want to, it's all good. These looks, oh, Erica, that looks awesome. Those spikes are so good. Oh, yes, this is amazing. If you wanted to as well, if you want to keep going with your chameleon, you can add dots, you can add details, you could make it look, so this one I added a bunch of dots to it. See how I've got little dots coming down here? If you wanted to keep going, you could add little dots all over him, give him a bunch of colors. Maybe you want to add more colored stripes. Maybe you want to add a little bug flying around in the sky so that he grabs and snatches it up and eats it. Let your imagination run wild. So I am sorry to say, but this is the last lesson for this term. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday. I have had so much fun working with you guys. It's always great to see what cool artworks you guys come up with. Definitely take photos of what you've done and send it into Brilliant Kids for me if that's all good, so that everyone can have a look and see how amazing of students you are, because you're all working very hard. And I'm going to say, have a wonderful afternoon. Have a great holidays. I'm recommending that everyone go and watch the Minions movie. And if you've already seen it, maybe you should go and see it again, because who knows, popcorn is amazing and that's the reason we go. Have a wonderful afternoon and enjoy your holidays. I'm going to say goodbye now, lovelies. Enjoy your afternoon.
Bye.
Enjoy the holiday.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
See
Thank
you
you.
next time. Oh.